The office was dead quiet, just the low hum of the heater and the occasional click from Renee's keyboard outside. I was reviewing freight logs when my phone buzzed and lit up with a name I hadn't seen in 4 years. Mom? I froze, just stared at the screen until it rang out. Didn't answer, couldn't. Voicemail dropped. I tapped play and put it on speaker. Her voice was thin, like she'd aged 30 years and 4. Caleb, we need to talk. It's about the family. Please call me back. Renee poked her head in like she always does. No knock, just boss energy. She took one look at my face and shut the door behind her. You look like you just swallowed a nail, she said, leaning on the file cabinet. I flipped the phone to show her the missed call. First time since I walked away, I said. 6 years since I left town. 4 since I stopped answering. Not even 2 minutes later, another ping. This time, a text from Dad. Victor Ortiz. Please call your mother. It's important. The kind of message you send when the bridge is already ash and you want to pretend it still stands. I scrolled through the old messages, guilt bait, holiday crumbs, fake, we miss you texts they sent instead of showing up when it mattered. My thumb hovered. I hit call. Quick note, before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're tuning in from. Now, back to the story. She picked up before the first ring even finished, like she'd been holding the phone for hours. Caleb, she said, we've been trying to reach you. It's complicated. We're in trouble. Define we, I said, voice flat. The business, the house, everything, she rushed out. Mason, he made some bad moves. I clenched my jaw. I'd warned them years ago. His gambling, the fake confidence, the way they crowned him the favorite while I hauled pallets and ate noodles. How much? I asked, eyes on the yard outside. 2.6, she whispered. Then quickly, we know you're doing well. We read the articles. Yeah, now they read them. You weren't reading much when I was broke and sleeping in my truck, I said. She tried the word family like it hadn't been used to cut me down my whole life. I told her I'd think about it and hung up before she could cry. What's the damage? Renee asked. They want me to be the safety net, again. You gonna fix it? I glanced at the framed contract from our first client on the wall. Maybe, but not with a check. She slid a folder across the desk. Start with this. Public records, your brother's loans. Phone buzzed again. Mason. I declined. I looked at the ceiling, jaw tight. They'll learn what it costs and who paid for it. I went straight home and started throwing shirts and work boots into a duffel like I was late for something that already had me angry. The zipper caught twice, which felt about right. And when I shoved the bag under the bed to make room, my hand hit a shoebox I hadn't touched in years. Inside was the letter, the scholarship notice from when I was 17, crisp edges still sharp, like it never got the chance to breathe. I remembered the day Mason snatched it out of my hand, held it above his head, and smirked. He said, "Must be scraping the bottom this year," and Mom laughed like it was a joke worth repeating. I folded the letter once and put it back, then shut the lid hard. Dad tried to teach me the family business when I was 14, but it always went the same way. I'd make one mistake. He'd sigh like I ruined his day, and then say, "Let Mason show you." Mason always smiled when that happened, like it proved something permanent. I crossed the room to the bookcase and looked at the first business license I ever framed. The day I signed my own lease on a warehouse with a cracked floor and no heat. I stood there alone and shook hands with myself. No applause, no speeches, just keys and responsibility. My phone rang while I was zipping the bag. Kara. She'd seen the worst years and never let me forget who I was underneath them. "Tell me you're not going back to rescue them," she said. "I'm going back to show them the bill," I told her. She didn't hesitate. "Remember graduation? Mason got a used Beamer, and you got a lecture about local trade school." "They took a second mortgage for his genius startup," I said, staring at the ceiling fan as it rattled. $240,000. It folded in 80 days. "And now they want your money," she said. "They want to pretend the last decade didn't happen," I said. "Which means I'll have to show them it did." The doorbell rang. Renee came in holding 2 coffees and a folder thick enough to hurt someone. She set it on the table and started spreading papers like cards. "I did some digging," she said. "He didn't just invest badly. He used company funds for personal expenses. I've been building this since last spring when the first liens showed up. Public filings made it clean." "Criminal?" I asked. Not charged yet, she said, tapping a page. But forging signatures like this one that looks like your dad's will move things fast. I stared at loan forms for $900,000 and $1.1 million, both signed with a hand that wasn't Victor Ortiz's. You think I'm swooping in, I said. I think you're making them face it, she said. Then you're choosing yourself. I tossed the bag in the truck and texted Mom. I'll be in town Friday. We'll talk. Her reply came back almost instantly. Thank you, sweetheart. We knew we could count on you. I shut the door and started the engine. They have no idea, I said. Good, Renee said from the curb. Make sure of it. I barely sat down before Mason leaned across the table like we were brothers meeting for brunch, not a reckoning. The cafe used to be a grease pit donut shop I worked in sophomore year. Now, it was all sleek lines and iced lattes. The place had changed. He hadn't. He tried to stand like he wanted a hug, arms halfway up, but I didn't move. He sat back down slow. He flagged the barista and ordered something that wasn't on the menu, then looked annoyed when they couldn't make it. Classic. Mason thought making people uncomfortable was charm. The kid in the apron didn't even blink. Mom told you? He asked, tapping the edge of the table like he had a timeline to manage. She told me the rated G version, I said. Renee found the real one. He flinched at her name. Your partner should keep out of family business. I slid my phone across the table. Photos, documents, withdrawal records. Family business ended when you forged Dad's name. He looked at the screen, didn't touch it, just leaned in like he was about to pitch something life-changing. I had a plan. The market turned. It's temporary. I raised an eyebrow. The casino receipts from 16 months ago say different. How much did you actually lose? He stared at the table like it might save him. Then, quiet, 4.7. I let the number hang in the air and exhaled slow. Does Dad know? Not all of it, he said fast. But listen, I can fix this. One deal. I just need a bridge. How much? I asked, even though I already hated myself for asking. 400,000, he said, trying to sound calm. I'll pay you double in 5 months. I shook my head. You still owe me 6,500 from when we were 20. You told me that was a sure thing too. No. He smiled like he could still sell it. We're family, Caleb. I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud enough to turn heads. You'll tell them everything tomorrow, Dad's office, noon, or I will. He reached across and grabbed my sleeve hard. I stopped, looked him in the eye. You wouldn't, he said, voice low, the edge of a threat hiding behind brotherly desperation. Try me, I said. I'm not 19 anymore. I walked out without another word, pushed through the glass door, and didn't stop until I hit the sidewalk. I pulled out my phone and texted Renee. He admits 4.7, wants 400,000, meeting tomorrow, noon. Her reply buzzed back almost immediately. You good? I looked through the window. Mason was still sitting there, hands shaking like the truth was finally catching up. For the first time in years, I typed. Then I kept walking. The walls still had the same photos, Dad shaking hands with guys in suits who probably wouldn't take his calls now. The bullpen was gutted, empty desks with faint monitor outlines and chair scuffs where people used to sit too long. The building looked like it had already accepted the end. Mom met me near the door and reached in for a hug. I stood still. She backed off with a quick pat to my arm, like that made it okay. Dad stood near the conference table, arms folded, face older than I remembered. He looked like someone who hadn't gotten bad news yet but knew it was coming. We appreciate you coming, he said, using that same salesman voice he used on clients right before he hit them with surprise fees. This isn't about a loan, I said, plugging in my laptop and connecting to the projector without looking up. The first slide hit the wall. 3 years of financials in the red negative margins stacked like bricks. Mom blinked and asked, "What is this?" Like I hadn't warned her already. This is what your favorite son did to the company, I said, clicking through slides like I was gutting a fish. Unauthorized loans, forged signatures, casino charges on corporate cards, wire transfers at 2 a.m. Dad's eyes locked on the screen. I pulled up the $900,000 loan form. That's not my signature, he said. I nodded and showed the second one, 1.1 million, where his name was signed, but the handwriting wasn't his. He leaned closer, then leaned back like the air got heavier. Total damage, I said, clicking to the next slide, 4.7 million. Not 2.6, that was Mason's warm-up pitch. Mom reached for a tissue and cried into it like that would erase numbers. Dad kept his eyes on the grain of the table, like maybe it held answers his son didn't. Then the door opened. Mason stepped in like he was late to brunch, tie crooked, shirt wrinkled, eyes red. I pointed to the empty chair at the end of the table. He sat without a word. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" I snapped. "After you burned through another line of credit you couldn't pay back?" Dad's voice came rough and dry. "Is it true?" Mason didn't look up. He just nodded. I clicked forward again. "Investors are already pulling out. The bank's calling the loans. Legal says best case scenario. We've got 3 weeks, 19 days if the covenants trigger early. After that, forced liquidation." Mom half stood. "We can fix this together." "Sit down," I said. She did. "I'm not here to rescue this place. I'm here to give you terms, if you want help facing what's coming." I slid a document across the table. Mason goes to real addiction counseling. Dad steps down. A restructuring firm takes over. And Mom, you acknowledge publicly what you did to me. She blinked hard. "Publicly?" "At Aunt Lorna's, Sunday." Mason snorted like he still had dignity. "And if we don't?" I stood, slow and steady. "Then I go to the board and the police. Let's see how they feel about forged documents and 7-figure fraud." I clicked one final slide, my company's valuation. $28 million. I didn't steal to build this. I worked. Dad stared at the number, mouth tight. "We'll talk tonight." "You have until morning," I said, shutting the laptop and walking out. "Text me yes or no." Behind me, the chair Mason had sat in cracked under his weight. Nobody moved. The coffee at Marlowe's was terrible, but I wasn't there for taste. I sat at the corner booth with the fake leather torn near the seam, watching 2 old guys throw darts at the back wall like it was personal. The door opened, and Marissa walked in fast, eyes wide, mouth set. She spotted me, crossed the floor without slowing down, and slid into the seat across from me like she'd been rehearsing it in the parking lot. We hadn't talked since she dated one of Mason's beer buddies after high school. Now she was seeing Mason, though from the look on her face, she was about done. "I know what he's doing," she said. No hello, no warm-up. "And if I don't say it to someone, I'm part of it." I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to hear it, but she looked like someone who'd finally stopped lying to herself, and I listened because it felt like she wasn't going to say it twice. She reached into her bag and set a USB drive on the table like it might explode. Emails, bank statements, transfers, offshore, and a letter he drafted to your board, full of lies meant to tank your company if you don't help him. I stared at it. "Why give it to me?" I asked. She looked embarrassed for a second. "Because I was at your launch event years ago. I watched your mom tell people not to go, said it'd only encourage you. I kept quiet. That's on me." My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. "We'll meet tonight, 7 p.m. Marissa leaned in. "He says he's got private investors. Says he'll bury it or blow you up. Depends on what works." I stood and grabbed the USB, and by the time I hit the truck, I was already dialing Renee. "Lock the building," I said. "Get the lawyers on standby. No one talks to the board." "Already pinged security," she said. "What's your move?" "The bank," I told her. "We're going to put him in a corner before he knows he's boxed." I drove straight to Northway Community Bank. Mr. Keating came out from his office, same guy who shook my hand when I opened my first account with 10 pallets and a dream. He waved me in, shut the door, and didn't blink as I laid it out. I said the word forgery, and he didn't flinch. Just asked me to say it again slower. "We'll freeze anything suspicious," he said, already pulling up forms. "This goes to our fraud unit. They'll coordinate with local law enforcement." He slid the forms to me. "You understand they may try to reach him today?" I nodded and handed him the USB. I felt a tension break in my chest I hadn't realized I was holding. The confirmation email hit my phone before I made it back to the parking lot. No drama, no lecture, just action. I pulled into my parents' driveway 30 minutes later. Mason's car was already there, Dad's truck too. The house looked too still, like something was waiting to go wrong. My phone buzzed again. "Marissa, be careful, he's cornered." Mom opened the door fast, like she'd been pacing behind it for an hour. Her eyes were red, and she stepped aside without a word, like a hotel bellhop just doing her job. I walked in and set my briefcase on the coffee table, dead center, no apology. For once, I wanted the room to belong to me. Mason was in Dad's recliner, like he was still the heir to something that hadn't already burned. His legs were crossed like he wasn't the reason I was there, and Dad stood behind the couch with both hands resting on it like he was holding onto a structure collapsing in slow motion. "We talked about your terms," Mom started. "Hold that," I said, flipping open the case. "The bank and I had a better conversation." I laid out the printouts one by one, clean, labeled, and sharp. Duplicate ledgers, fake shell companies with names that sounded like yacht clubs. Money moved from Nevada to Maine to Arizona, bouncing in loops designed to look legitimate until you actually followed the trail. Dad leaned forward, eyes scanning hard. When he saw his name on a transfer form that led to a Cayman account, his whole face twitched. "You did this?" he asked Mason, voice cracked like something old breaking under pressure. Mason barely shrugged. The smirk on his face reminded me of high school dances, when he used to walk in late and make everyone wait. "I don't know what you're talking about." I hit play on my phone. The audio was scratchy but clear. Mason talking to someone named Roman, walking through step by step how to hide money offshore. Mom gasped and sat down like the couch was the only solid thing in the house. Dad didn't sit. He just stared like maybe if he didn't blink, none of it would be true. "If you help me," Mason said suddenly, eyes locked on mine, ignoring the rest, "I won't send that letter." "The bank already froze the accounts," I said. "Your letter won't even make it to a trash can. And you just confirmed everything with your mouth." He stood fast and lunged forward, grabbing my forearm like that would stop anything. His fingers were tight, desperate. "You can't do this to me," he said. The same line he used when we were kids and he got caught sneaking out. "I didn't do it to you," I said. "You did. I'm just done carrying it." That's when the blue lights flashed against the wall. No siren at first, just color and weight. Mom whispered, "Please," like there was a button I could push to undo years in 5 seconds. "The bank reported the fraud," I said. "They called the police. They're not here for me." Dad finally moved. He stepped around the couch and put a hand on Mason's shoulder. It was slow, heavy. "Son," he said quietly, "let go." The knock was soft but sure. 1 tap, then 2. I opened the door, and 2 officers stood there, one reading from a clipboard. "Is Mason Ortiz here?" "He's inside," I said. They cuffed him while Mom cried. Mason looked back at me like he had one last bullet to fire. "I'll ruin you," he said. "You already tried," I said. It didn't stick. The door closed behind them, and the silence that followed was deeper than quiet. No TV, no fake family talk. Just the hum of failure hanging in the air. Dad turned to me. "What now?" "Receivership," I said. "You'll step down next week. A professional team will take over. The house might go. The reputation's already gone." "And you?" Mom asked, her voice the smallest thing in the room. "My offer still stands," I said. "Counseling for him, real restructuring, and the truth in front of the family." She wiped her face and nodded once, like it hurt. "Sunday," she said. "Aunt Lorna's." "Sunday," I repeated. I packed up the papers, clicked the case shut, and left them sitting there in the wreckage they had built. Aunt Lorna's living room smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet, exactly like it did the night they passed around my first business plan, like it was a punchline. The couch still sagged on the right side, same spot Mason planted himself back then, while he called my numbers cute. The room was packed, uncles leaning against walls with their arms crossed like bodyguards, cousins slouched into chairs, waiting for someone to say something worth reacting to. Most of them had spent years pretending not to hear my name. They all heard it now. I walked in with Renee next to me, not because I needed backup, but because I wasn't walking into rooms like this alone anymore. She had the folder under her arm, but it was mostly for show now. Aunt Lorna opened her arms like she didn't know what side to stand on. I let her hug me because she'd slipped me gas money more than once when I was 17 and invisible in my own house. My parents stood near the fireplace, both of them stiff and wrecked. Dad's eyes looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. Mom looked like she'd rehearsed something and wasn't sure how to start. She cleared her throat. "We owe Caleb an apology," she said, and the room shifted like the floor tilted under everyone's feet. Uncle Dean tried to wave it off. "Maybe not in front of everyone." "No," Dad cut in, surprising everyone, even himself. "This is exactly where." Mom swallowed and went on. "We didn't support him. We tried to protect Mason's image and ignored what it cost. We told people not to show up for Caleb's company launch. We didn't want to encourage him. That's what I said. The silence after that wasn't clean. It was messy and full of people trying not to look directly at me. I pulled my phone out and mirrored the screen to the TV. The first photo showed the warehouse when I signed the lease, cracked floors, one dock door, no insulation. Then came the old corkboard with the first contract thumbtacked to it, the barbecue for the team. The second dock expansion, then the article from last month, 13 million in contracts with a manufacturer who needed reliable freight. 12 of you declined my invite 3 years ago, I said. 7 didn't respond. Kara showed up. She took that photo. More pictures, smiling drivers, a whiteboard with dispatch routes, a hard hat on the desk with my name stickered on it. While you were bailing out Mason's fourth venture, I was hiring people who showed up on time and didn't gamble with payroll. I shut off the slideshow and slipped my phone into my pocket. This isn't about money, I said. This is about being told I wasn't enough, and building anyway. Aunt Lorna, steady as ever, looked straight at me. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said. Not anymore. I'm handling the restructuring. Dad steps down next week. Mason's starting counseling if he wants parole to look good. Mom looked around like she was seeing the room for the first time. And the rest of us? You get to sit with what you chose, I said. I'm not asking you to change it. I'm just not carrying it anymore. Renee gave my shoulder a squeeze on the way out. I didn't look back. Monday started quiet, and for once, it felt like a good thing. Forklifts moved steady at the docks, tires squealing just enough to sound alive. Dispatch radios popped and cracked over the noise. Someone laughed near Bay 2, and the air near Dock 3 smelled like burnt brake fluid and cheap coffee. It felt like control, not pride, not celebration, just function. Renee dropped a thick stack of forms on my desk before I even finished my first cup. Trustee likes your plan, she said. They'll bring in a turnaround team by Friday. Good, I said, and I meant it. The company my dad built didn't deserve to die just because his pride wouldn't admit he raised a mess. Counsel filed the receivership papers with the court that morning. Dad's resignation went out to the board before lunch. No drama, just a PDF and a subject line that read, effective immediately. Mom called twice, left one voicemail, then texted, we're ready to sign, like it was a discount window that might close if they waited too long. I texted back one line, do it because it's right, not because it saves face. No reply. I didn't expect one. That afternoon, I met Mr. Keating again at Northway. He shook my hand and took the last of what Marissa had given me, account logs, flagged statements, everything tied up with a bow. Thank you for being professional, he said, and I almost laughed. I hadn't felt professional. I'd felt like the only adult in a room wired to a short circuit. But I nodded. Kara took me to dinner at some hole-in-the-wall Italian place tucked behind a pet store. Paper napkins, plastic cups, the works. She talked about work, about her niece getting her license, about a roof leak she wasn't fixing until spring. Halfway through the garlic knots, she looked up and said, "You don't have to hold your shoulders like that anymore. I didn't know I was." "You did what you came to do," she said. "The rest isn't yours." On the drive home, I passed the old office again. Empty windows, the bullpen I used to be invisible in. I pictured the last slide, the 4.7 million hole. I thought about Mom's hands shaking while she said sorry in front of people who used to clap when Mason talked. That night, I slept. No dreams, no rewinds, just lights out, then daylight. By noon the next day, the trustee confirmed the freeze was holding. The DA's office sent a letter. Not friendly, not angry, just a record. Cold, clean. I printed it and filed it away. After lunch, I walked the dock and watched a driver back clean into Bay 5 on the first try. No yelling, no rush, no mess. Whatever that feeling was in my chest. It wasn't rage, it wasn't grief either, but it was mine. 3 weeks later, Nina buzzed my office. "Your brother's here," she said, soft, like she wasn't sure if she should have said it out loud. I looked up from the invoices, and there he was, Mason in the doorway, 10 pounds lighter and 5 years older, wearing a wrinkled button-down and jeans like someone dressing for their first real job, not their last lie. I didn't stand, just waved him in. He stepped inside slow, sat in the guest chair like it might fold under him. His hands stayed clasped, knuckles white, like he didn't trust them not to shake. "I've been in therapy," he said before I could speak. Real, group and one-on-one, started the day after. I nodded once. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. It was just a word to let him keep going. My arm stayed on the desk. I didn't trust them either. He pulled a folded letter from his pocket and placed it in front of me like it was something fragile. I wrote this at night, rewrote it when I couldn't sleep. I unfolded it and started reading out loud before I could change my mind. The first lines came easy. Sorry for the money, the lies, the threats. But then it hit deeper. He was sorry for making me small so he could feel big. Sorry for stealing moments he never earned. Sorry for thinking love was owed instead of earned. I had to pause halfway, clear my throat. He didn't speak, just motioned for me to keep going. I finished. My voice was steadier than I felt. He pulled a second sheet from his pocket and set it beside the first. Full resignation, I'm divesting everything, putting my shares into the restructuring process. You don't have to, I said, automatic. I do, he replied. If the apology means anything, the action has to cost something. I sat back, let the silence stretch. Mom know you're here? He shook his head fast. No, this is mine. She's got her own stuff to fix. What now? I asked. Entry level, he said. My buddy runs a shipping outfit. There's a mailroom slot. Early mornings, no office. I need to learn how to show up when no one claps. I raised a brow. No consulting gigs lined up? He half smiled. I don't know anything worth billing for. Not yet. My phone buzzed on the desk. Mom's name. The message said, "Is he there?" I flipped the phone screen down. I didn't want her in the room, not now. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said as he stood. I just needed to say it out loud. I see what I did, and I see you. He left like he came in, no noise, no performance, shoulders square, head level. I watched him walk across the lot, like someone finally figuring out what it meant to move forward. Renee stepped into the office, read the letter over my shoulder without asking. She didn't say much, just nodded once. Looks like a start, she said. Yeah, I said, and this time I didn't leave my hands hanging. I opened the drawer, slid the letter inside, and shut it with the kind of finality I didn't need to explain. A week later, I got to the yard before sunup. The sky was the color of steel, and the trucks idled with thick vapor curling into the cold. It was the kind of morning that felt right, tight, clean, like the world was back on track. The trustees' crew had taken over the business formally. I got a text from Mom, just a photo of a clipboard with a note scribbled in blue pen. It looked like hope, if you squinted. I typed back, followed their lead, and didn't send anything else. Kara called on her way to work and asked, "How does it feel now that the smoke's cleared?" I leaned against a loading gate and told her the truth. I'm not angry every minute anymore, just tired, but in a clean way. Back in the office, the emails were boring in the best possible way. Maintenance request for Dock 7, new delivery window from a food distributor. Vendor finally switched to direct deposit after 2 years of pushing. The kind of stuff that keeps the lights on, no drama attached. My phone buzzed from a number I didn't know. The message read, "First shift went okay. Sorting mail, doing it right." It was Mason, different number, same name. I texted back, "Good, keep going." Then I put the phone face down and walked the docks while the team loaded pallets with steady precision. Mr. Keating emailed to say the final bank freeze was holding, fraud package complete, and I was officially listed with the DA's office as the reporting party. That line hit different. It wasn't revenge, it was responsibility. Renee and I stood at Bay 2, going over the layout. We talked about maybe adding a cross-dock facility in Oak Ridge next spring. No pressure, no reaction. Just a plan we wanted to make, not one we were forced into. At lunch, Mom called. Her voice wasn't shaky this time. "Thank you," she said. That was it. No ask, no follow-up. "Make it right with the people you hurt," I said. "Don't make it about me." "We will," she said. And I let her hang up first, because for once I didn't need the last word. Later that afternoon, I sat at my desk and opened Mason's letter again. It didn't punch this time. It sounded like something written by someone who wasn't trying to impress anyone. Just own something. I sent him one more message. "You said I was the best of us. Prove it? Not to me. Just to yourself." He replied, "Copy that." I smiled, closed the drawer, and looked around the office. The first invoice framed on the wall, the photo from the day I bought our dock scales in cash, the dented hard hat from when I ran freight myself because we were short on guys. Sometimes the only revenge you need is the life they told you you'd never build. And sometimes peace is just watching the wreckage stay where it belongs, without you carrying it. I turned off the light and headed out. Forklifts humming, drivers waving, no excuses, just honest work done right. Before you head out, quick question. When family fails you, do you set boundaries or bail them out again? Tap hype to boost reach, subscribe and like, then drop a comment.